As the government shutdown looms with still no deal for dreamers in sight. President Trump firing back at Democratic Senator Dick Durbin.
We have a new nickname. The president tweeting, Senator Dickie Durbin totally misrepresented what was said at the DACA meeting.
I know what happened. I stand behind every word that I said.
The Democrats need to get over it.
They're calling it a house of horrors. Several children found starving, chained to beds.
The parents arrested after one of their daughters, a brave young girl, escaped to call police.
Her 12 brothers and sisters were being held by their parents.
A major update on the Uranium One scandal. The federal authorities have now announced an indictment in the Russian bribery scheme.
It is as corrupt. It's probably more corrupt than we know.
And the question is they're going to follow up with Hillary Clinton? Is it tied to the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton machine and the Obama administration?
More details about President Trump's first physical exam as Commander-in-Chief. President Trump, who is 71 years old, is in, quote, excellent health after his checkup on Friday.
Brian says to us every single morning.
Right, and I actually sing it and snap to it, so which is kind of interesting.
Brian Mulatto.
Right, I mean, do they actually in the song snap, or do they do that from like an organ or an
organ, a rhythm box?
Like, so do they do it with some type of machine?
It could be my dad. You know how dads have that snap and it's so loud?
I never got that.
You didn't?
Never really got
snap?
it. You can't snap?
My dad's a loud snapper.
Right? He's a loud snapper.
A loud snapper. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. That's about as rhythmic as we get.
There you go. Hey, Ainsley's back. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I went to the Bahamas for a few days, and we had a great time, but I am glad to be back.
Right.
It's a little chilly there.
Right. Here? Or in the Bahamas?
In the Bahamas.
Everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Would it drop to 70?
The weather was nice. It was like in the upper 70s.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we didn't get in the pool or the water.
Well, it's good to be away.
The kids did, but not the adults.
So if you're going to the beach today in the Bahamas, along with your sandals, get a pullover.
It's a little chilly.
Right.
Meanwhile, a chilly reception down on Capitol Hill. We just showed you the exterior of the U.S. Capitol building because the lights are on right now. The big question is, will the lights be off on Friday night? It's a countdown to the government figuring out and our legislators figuring out what to do about a short-term budget cap. And it looks like they're probably going to have another little patch. But keep in mind, this has become very political because while the Republicans want the government to funding, the Democrats see this as their maximum leverage so they can get DACA. The president made it very clear. Not an emergency. You have till March to do DACA, but the Republicans think the Democrats are going to try to stall them out on this, and it's been so far effective.
Mm-hmm.
So you're wondering if there's going to be another 2-week, because Steve, you mentioned patch.
Yep.
Are they going to just say, okay, we're going to fund the government for 2 more weeks and continue to negotiate to see what we're going to add to the 2-year budget, which should have been passed a while ago? And the question is, after this weekend and the controversy after that Thursday meeting that led to the Friday and the weekend of accusations back and forth, here we are on Tuesday. Is anyone talking behind the scenes in a bipartisan way to bring something forward back to the president that he might be able to sign? So far, nothing formal has gone forward. There's nothing on the docket today except for a meeting with Kazakhstan's leader to indicate that the president's going to do so.
Congresswoman Martha McSally was on Fox yesterday, and she said she's the one who's running for, she's announced that she's going to run as a senator for Jeff Flake's seat. This is the state of Arizona. She deals with border security all the time. She said Democrats are not going to get a clean DACA deal. Listen to this.
There's no such thing as doing a clean DREAM Act. The Democrats need to get over it. It's not happening. We in our bill have come up with the president's priorities, the American people's priorities, and that should be a starting place for these negotiations.
So it does sound as if the Republicans do have an ace up their sleeve, so to speak, and that is with the short-term, probably short-term, continuing resolution to fund the government. What they would probably do with it is to include the CHIP program for children and also hurricane relief. And if that's in there without the DACA thing, it would be hard for vulnerable Democrats to vote against it. So that could be the leverage to get this thing down the field a little further.
Democrats are saying, you're not going to give us DACA, then we're not going to fund the government. Back in 2013, you have Chuck Schumer, who's part of this deal, saying we're not going to fund the government. Back in 2013, during the debt ceiling negotiations, he said that tying immigration reform to budgetary matters and trying to shut down the government only breeds governmental chaos.
Oh, that was then.
That was then. Now, when it works in his favor, he's doing exactly what he was criticizing years ago.
So Dick Durbin, the number 2 the ranking Democrat in the Senate, is sitting there defending himself and claiming that the president really offended him in that meeting, and he's defending himself against what he said and the pushback from Senator Perdue and others who are saying you didn't say this. So as they go back and forth, Senator Schumer thought it would be a good idea to go on with Stephen Colbert and offer a challenge to the president.
Actions speak louder than words. You want to just begin that long road back to proving you're not a racist, you're not bigoted. Support the bipartisan compromise that 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats have put on the floor. Everyone gave. If you're going to listen to the farthest right, we will never have an immigration policy. They're not where America is, and they're not even where the Republican Party is. You can't let a small group on the extreme govern.
And he can't let a small group on the extreme on the left govern, too. Where's his leadership? He's been invisible. So is Mitch McConnell.
If you listen to what he said, wasn't he really kind of saying, he was talking directly to the president. He said, you're going to have to go with this bad deal, otherwise you are a racist. A bad deal in the estimation of the president. Mark Levin was on Levin Television, is the host of Levin Television, was on with Sean last night, and made an observation about what is going on just in a larger picture regarding all these accusations.
As an American citizen, to watch this is repulsive. To watch the mob media do what they're doing. Last week we were told the president was mentally unstable. For months before that, we're told he's colluding with the Russians. Today, we're told he's a racist. What happened to that author, Michael Wolff? 3 days ago, he was the in thing. Now he's gone. Now we're on to something new because a known liar, Dick Durbin, leaves a confidential meeting with the president and other senators. He's relied on by the media because they want to rely on him, just like they wanted to rely on that author. They want to push this president out. They talk about the 25th Amendment. They talk about impeachment.
Yeah, everything you see chronicled. By the way, Mark Levin's going to be starting a Sunday show here shortly, in a few weeks, I think. But that's a great point. It's definitely happening. My one, if Mark Levin's 100% right, let's say you side with Senator Schumer, my thing is, can you in 3 days grab which the Republicans say is a bad deal? Can you build on that and get something that the president would say is a good enough deal? Is there enough time today, tomorrow, and Thursday to say this is enough to sign something by Friday?
I don't think there's not bipartisan support for anything at this point, because what the president looked at the deal that came to him from the moderate Democrats and Republicans last week. He said, look, I'm not getting the wall money I need. I don't have the chain migration. I don't have the visa lottery system. The Democrats got everything they want. And that's why earlier I depicted it as a bad deal, the president would say.
The problem is you just don't want to push something through so quickly. You don't want the government to shut down, but at the same time, this is a very important issue. Over the weekend, we were sitting around talking about politics, and someone brought up a good point in the cold weather. Someone said that they work for a big bank here in New York, and there is someone that's an immigrant. They're going to have to send him to another country because he's on the list, and he's far down on the list, and it takes a long time. This guy's from India. She said he is so qualified, and he needs to be at the top of the list. And they were all saying what's important to them is a merit-based system. It's just like if you gave scholarship money to a kid, you're going to want the best kid to get that scholarship money. And they were all saying, if we're going to spend our tax dollars to fund someone to come over, we want the best of the best.
And the H-1B1 visa is something that Silicon Valley really wants to begin with. So a lot of those people here go to school in Stanford. They want to go to Silicon Valley, but they're told, now that you got your degree, you can go home now. So that would be something would be phase 2. But in phase 1, they agreed the issue should be chain migration, lottery, and the wall. They all agree with that. Not enough money, not the chain migration reform they wanted, and not the lottery reform they wanted. So go back in and work on all those 3 things. Close the door, get your lead staffers in there, and if you have enough promise, you get a 2-week extension towards some type of deal. That's the way it used to be done.
Right, negotiating.
Well, ultimately, it's just, we're talking about national security. And you go through each piece by piece. Do you need a wall? I know there's a division on that question. Do you need the visa lottery system? Do you need the diversity program? And you go down, and it just doesn't seem like either side is willing to budge much at this point. And that's why the moment of maximum leverage right now for the Democrats is, okay, the government's going to close unless we get the DACA deal, but they're not going to get the DACA deal this week.
Right, and March doesn't even look like a real deadline after that San Francisco judge made the ruling he made. They said by the time this is revisited, that could be as late as June. So anyone who says the rubber hits the road when it comes to DACA, even in March, might not even be accurate because everyone was able to file for DACA extension already.
Yep. Right. So stay tuned.
All right, Jillian has some headlines for us. Good morning to you.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, too, at home as well. We want to give you an update on a story we brought you in the 5 a.m. hour. So let's start with this Fox News alert. 4 law enforcement officers shot overnight in South Carolina. Deputies responding to a domestic violence call in York County outside Charlotte, North Carolina. The suspect, Christian Thomas McCall, started running before cops got there. Police say he shot a canine officer when they tracked him down and opened fire on 3 deputies hours later. Their conditions all still unknown.
We could really use your prayers, and we could really use your thoughts right now for those officers.
The suspect also shot. Still no word on a motive. We will keep you updated. Also breaking, a very disturbing report out of California. They're calling it a house of horrors. David and Louise Turpin accused of holding their 13 children captive in one room, some of them starving and chained to beds. Police making the discovery about 30 miles outside of San Bernardino after one of their brave daughters escaped to call 911. Authorities say the siblings ranged in age from 2 to 29. Their parents facing several charges, including torture and child abuse, and are being held on a $9 million bond. How neighbors are reacting, that's coming up in a live report in the next half hour. Overnight, North Korea responding to President Trump's nuclear button tweet. State-run media blasting the president for saying he had a bigger button than Kim Jong-un. Meantime, the State Department issuing this chilling new warning, quote, make funeral plans if you plan on traveling to the rogue nation. That advice comes after new rules issued last year that now require Americans to get special permission to travel to North Korea. The lead singer of the Irish rock group The Cranberries has died. Chris O'Riordan suddenly passing away in a London hotel before a recording session. Her publicist says her family is devastated. No word on the cause of death. Last year, a bad back and other health issues forced the band to cancel tour dates. O'Riordan was 46 years old. So look at your headlines, and so young. It's always sad to see that.
Great voice.
Yeah,
love that
I love
song.
that song.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right. Jillian, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, still ahead on this Tuesday, an indictment handed up in the Uranium One scandal. Our next guest represents the FBI informant in that investigation, and she says this is just the beginning.
And forget the game. This kid just stole the show.
It is a story we've been following, an indictment handed out in the Uranium One scandal. Mark Lambert, a former Maryland transit firm executive accused of bribing Russians for nuclear contracts. Our next guest has inside information on the scandal. Victoria Tenzing is the attorney for that FBI informant in the Uranium One probe, and she joins us live from our nation's capital. Good morning to you, Victoria.
Good morning. Good morning, Steve.
All right, so your guy, you're the confidential informant, worked for this company, right?
No, he did not. He worked for his own company.
Okay.
This indictment of Mark Lambert is significant for the questions it raises. And let me just give you a background so we can follow it. My client started in 2009 reporting on 2 corrupt entities. One of them, the Russian companies, 10X, 10M, and Rosatom. And then the other one was this transit companies called Transportation Logistics International, TLI for short. Okay? So then, as we all know, in 2010, knowing that these Russian companies were corrupt, the Obama administration said, oh yeah, but they can buy Uranium One, the company that covered 20% of our uranium. Now, fast forward, to early 2015, over 4 years later, then the first indictments came down, for goodness sakes. But the indictments covered the head of Tenem, the Russian company,
right,
and only one of the two co-owners of this transit company. Now, who is Mark Lambert? He's the other co-owner.
Right.
Steve, as a former prosecutor, I say I'm scratching my head.
Yeah.
Why wasn't he indicted back in 2015 with the rest of them?
Well, what's the answer to that?
Oh, I don't know. Nobody's telling me. I guess you're going to have to ask Loretta Lynch. It was the Obama administration in charge of it. But let me just tell you why it's bizarre from a prosecutorial standpoint. But let me just tell you why I'm also concerned about it, and that is that this is dangerous business. This is not just delivering groceries. Uranium One is a highly dangerous entity, and I'm told by experts, that would not be me, but I'm told that just like a handful of it in the wrong hands could destroy New York City or Washington, D.C., take your pick. And so here the government, the Obama administration, is allowing corrupt people who are working in bribery and kickbacks and all kinds of things, who want money, understandably, to have a quantity of material that they could sell for big bucks, for goodness sakes.
And
it's
the government
negligence.
And because of the indictments and the involvement in the investigations, clearly the federal government knew that the company was corrupt, and yet they allowed them to transport this dicey stuff all across the country.
And they allowed it for years after knowing that they were corrupt. Remember, my client started in 2009, 2010, and they went on and on and on. And now it's 2018, and this dude's just getting indicted. And there were a lot of Russians involved. You want me to name you one?
Sure.
Sergei Kiriyenko. Do you know who he is? Not a household name here. He is Putin's General Kelly. He is the chief of staff to Putin, and he was the head of Rosatom, which was the Russian nuclear company, and he was in on getting bribes. Do you think we're going to go after those Russians who were getting bribes?
Sure, and then of course the Russian company that's where the money, the tens of millions of dollars, went then to the Clinton Foundation, and that just leads to more questions. Let's see what else happens in this case. Victoria, thank you very much for joining us and trying to connect some of the dots. All right. It is 6:20 now here in New York City. One city just voted to get rid of prayer before council meetings to be more inclusive. What? We're going to tell you about that. Plus, Democrats have high hopes of winning back Congress this year. So what's their strategy? Do they have one? Two Democrats will try to explain that coming up.
All right, quick headlines now. The late Justice Antonin Scalia found President Trump, quote, refreshing. That, according to a brand new memoir out today. The book, Nino and Me, is a detailed account of the friendship between Scalia and author Brian Garner. Justice Scalia is speaking about President Trump in the early days of the campaign trail, calling him more genuine than a candidate whose every utterance is airbrushed. Garner will join us at the 8 o'clock hour. And New Jersey's incoming governor has vowed to make New Jersey a sanctuary state, but he's not stopping there. According to the Washington Post, Phil Murphy plans to create an agency called the Office of Immigrant Defense Protection, where people can call with questions about their status. Murphy will be sworn in today. I'm going to go upstairs and watch Angela's interview.
Thank you so much, Brian. Democratic leaders in Congress are desperately hoping to take back the majority with a wave of victories in the 2018 midterms. But there is one thing that they seem to be missing, a cohesive agenda, many would say. So what should the Democrats' focus be for 2018 and beyond? Here to debate that is Democratic strategist David Morey and former speechwriter to Attorney Generals Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch. Jake McAbee, thank you both for being with us. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Good morning.
You're welcome. Good morning. All right, David, I'll start with you. What is the strategy for the Democrats for the next election other than criticizing this president? And is that harmful to Democrats?
Well, they can't just criticize this president, Ainsley. They have to be for something, not just against something. You know, if you look at the generic ballot and the approval rating, this could be a swing election just like 1994, 2002, 2010. But the Democrats can't depend on that. There's been a drift from the sort of message that worked for candidate Trump in 2016 to questions about the messenger. But the truth is you have to be for something to win elections. We've advised 18 winning elections around the world. Not one was won by just being against something. You have to be for something. So they're going to have to be for a localized agenda for each of the congressional and Senate elections, and they're going to have to be for their version of a better America, fixing health care, building infrastructure and jobs, and standing for inclusion, not exclusion.
Jake, he's right. Messaging is so important. We saw that with this last election. President Trump had "Make America Great Again," a very simple motto, but it worked. What is the message for Democrats?
Well, I think Democrats do have a message. It's that we need higher wages and better jobs. It's that we deserve better opportunities for American families to make it in the 21st century and a lower cost of living for American families so people can succeed.
You said Dems want more money in their pocketbook. They want higher raises. Didn't we see that with the tax cuts? Didn't the president give Democrats that? We're seeing $1,000 bonuses. We're seeing our 401ks going up.
Well, I think what the president did is give massive tax breaks to the wealthiest people in America that is ultimately going to come from people who are struggling to get by. This is all coming from working Americans, and it's a big tax cut for people at the very top. The Democratic message going into the next election is going to be that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you look like or who you love, you deserve a shot at the American dream.
David, do you agree with that? Because if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers, everyone's getting a tax relief except for the wealthiest of the wealthy that live in New York and live in these states that have very expensive local taxes.
Well, the election's not held today. It's held a little less than a year from today, Ainsley. So, I think Jake has an important point. The question is, will there be, how will people feel a little less now? Will they feel they're better off? Will they feel they're more secure around the world? This is an issue, even though these are localized elections, and midterms tend to be more about the incumbent than other elections. There'll be this overall sense of strategy. Where are we with Iran, North Korea, the various threats? In terms of the tax cut and the economy, though, there's a sort of balloon mortgage effect that will at some point be felt by voters, when they don't see any more ups in the stock market, perhaps, and we're all rooting for the stock market, but we can't tell what's going to happen a year from now in terms of this economy.
Jake, what would you say to the Dems that are watching, that are interested in running? What does their message need to be? Because we're hearing resist, resist, resist. Is that going to resonate with the voters?
Well, I think it's partly resisting an agenda that's been pushing back and against people who are struggling, people who are left behind. And I think Democrats are going to be standing up for those people, standing up for people who've been left out and left behind, standing up for people who aren't being heard by this administration. That's an awful lot of people.
All right, David, a fifth lawmaker has decided not to be there to hear the State of the Union address the last week of January. What do you think about that? These are all Democrats, of course.
Well, look, some Democrats don't want to normalize the behavior of President Trump. And remember, Justice Scalia, who you just mentioned in your session, didn't come to like 11 State of the Unions because he found them childish exercises. Senator Cruz boycotted one of the State of the Unions that President Obama delivered. I actually don't think they should boycott. I think, again, back to my first point, Democrats win by being for something, not just against something. Candidate Trump has been very good at getting his opponents to overreact. And that's really playing by your opponent's agenda, not your own agenda.
Jake, what do you think about the boycotts?
Well, I think it's not unusual for individual members of Congress to boycott a State of the Union. Republicans did it in 1999. Mark Levin, who you just featured on this show in the last hour, called for a boycott of by Republicans in 2014. That part's not unusual. What is unusual are the series of events that have led up to this State of the Union, where you had the President of the United States make racist comments in the Oval Office, then deny he did it, but brag to friends about it. And that's on top of saying that Haitians have AIDS and that all Nigerians live in huts. This is a pretty extraordinary circumstance, so it's not unreasonable for some people to decide that they don't want to be a part of it.
I think I speak for all Americans. Don't we just want the fighting to end, though? I mean, you can't even watch the Golden Globes without this dark This morning, Todd.
And this is unbelievable, beyond unfathomable. When officers went inside the home of David and Louise Turpin, they found, quote, several children shackled to beds because she was so emaciated. And they also thought all the victims were actually kids, but eventually they discovered that 7 of them were adults. The sheriff's office said the victims appeared to be malnourished and very dirty. They were sent to local hospitals for treatment, but their conditions were not immediately known.
They were all in PJs because it was early in the morning. They were very, very pale skinned, like almost like they've never seen the sun. But I've seen a couple of the older ones, so they all, and it was mostly girls, and then kind of small framed, I'd say kind of tiny, almost looked a little malnutrition.
I always had a suspicion because that house
The change says it will give everyone a chance to pray or reflect however they choose. Take a look at this brand new look at the speeding car that went airborne, crashing into the second story of a building. Dash camera from a city bus showing the car launching into the air, missing the bus by just seconds. The speeding car catapulted after hitting a divider in the road. Neither the driver or his passenger were seriously hurt in that crash. That driver admits to using drugs. All right, you've got to see this. A little kid upstages both LeBron James and Steph Curry during halftime of a Cleveland Cavaliers game. Just watch. To find out who taught him these moves.
No kidding.
Right?
That's awesome.
So crazy.
Congratulations. All right.
Adorable.
Thank you, Jillian.
Yeah. All right, turning now to some extreme weather. Brutally cold temperatures triggering a dramatic close call for officers in Kentucky.
Police dash cam capturing a car, sliding on black guys, slamming into a parked police cruiser.
Now a winter storm sweeping across the eastern part of the country. Meteorologist Janice Dean is tracking it right now. Hey, JD.
Doesn't it make you sick to your stomach when you see
Yeah,
something
because
like
we've
that?
all slid.
Oh, my
Not
gosh.
that bad, but...
And we unfortunately have the potential for ice across the south today. So you look at the temperatures, yeah, it's cold. For much of the country, one in Minneapolis, you factor in the wind chill, what it feels like really outside, minus 17 in Kansas City. Feels like 10 in Dallas, feels like 17 in San Antonio. And speaking of Texas, that's where we're getting the wintry weather right now. Cancellations all over the map across portions of Houston, up towards Dallas because of freezing rain and ice. There's the radar. Freezing rain being reported right now in Austin and in San Antonio. Light rain for Houston, but that freezing rain, that mixture is moving into Houston, Texas. And you can see the future radar, not only Houston, but parts of Louisiana, across the Mississippi River Valley, Tennessee River Valley, and then it comes up towards the northeast. This will not be a bomb cyclone, but it is going to cause some travel delays, certainly overnight tonight and into tomorrow. And north and west of New York City, that's where we're going to get the heaviest of snow totals. So, you know, an inch here, an inch there. But when you're talking about snow across the south, areas that don't typically see this type of weather at any time of year, that's going to be an issue. And then we're going to be watching it across the northeast and New England. Some areas could get upwards of 3 to 6 inches of snow. There's your forecast today. Much of the country very cold. And then we watch a new system move into the northwest. That will be our next weather maker as we head into the weekend. But of course, if you live across the south, you want to stay inside and not be on the roadways today because it can be really dangerous.
That's right. And the storm here in the northeast is going to probably start as rain and then turn over?
It depends on where you live. Along the immediate coast, it's going to be in a rain event, but north and west of New York City, I would say you could get some big snow totals, plowable snow.
All right. JD, thank you very much.
You got it.
All snow is plowable on some level, I believe. 20 minutes to the top of the hour. Remember the self-described deplorable professor who called out PC culture on college campuses, first anonymously and then came publicly? He's now suing his school for defamation. He'll join us live with his case in a moment.
Plus, new legal concerns over a federal judge's order blocking President Trump's plan to end DACA. What does Judge Napolitano think? Well, he's right here. We'll ask him next. Good morning to you.